In this tutorial, I'm going to demonstrate how to create a sliding joint for the tray for the Heirloom box project. Now you can see this is where we got to at the end of the last tutorial, and the way we've been constructing this means that we've kind of got things all sitting over the top of each other. So what we might want to do before we do anything is move the tray out of the way. So to make things easier, we'll just turn our box and our lid off. And generally a quick way of doing this, if we just select the assembly and then we can just move it. And we've got a little bit of a problem here. Normally that should be moving, but we might have a little bit of a problem with the way the joints are set up. So if you find that you can grab an arrow and it moves, you don't have this problem. But in any case, I'm just going to show you how to solve it if you do. So if we look at our tray subassembly, one of the joints, and you can see it's this one here, is in our tray subassembly. But if we look up here to our master assembly, we can see that this other joint is up here. So probably to do it most easily, all we need to do is if we just right click, we can just delete that joint and then select our tray, and then we're just going to make that joint again. So keyboard shortcut letter J, and we can just come into that corner there, that corner there. Okay. And if we have a look, we can actually see now both of our joints are sitting inside our subassembly. So we'll close that up, select that, right click, move, and we're just going to move it out of the way a little bit. Okay. Then we can just turn everything else on, and we've got them separated for our next operation. Up to this stage, whenever we've done any joining operations, we've been joining components to components. But now we're going to start joining subassemblies to subassemblies, and it just introduces a few things we've got to consider. And just to show you, I'll demonstrate what can happen. So I'm just going to turn the lid assembly off because it's not relevant for this one. J for join, and I'm going to join this corner of the sliding tray to this corner of the box. Now if I press OK, you can see some funny things have happened there. So I'm just going to undo that and just show you another sort of step that we can undertake before we do that. So the first thing we can do is we'll select the box assembly, right click on it, and we'll turn it into a rigid group. So it kind of will now treat this as a all of these components are together. As you can see in the summary there, they're treated as a single object when moved or when joints are applied. So we'll turn that into a rigid group. You might get this warning here. In this case, we're happy with the position of everything, so we'll just go with capture position. And then we'll go OK. So same with the lid. So we'll select it, right click, rigid group, OK. And then with the tray, same again, rigid group. Now because we've moved it, it might give us some warnings. So we'll just say yes there. And we're pretty happy now. So in terms of the joint, what we'll do is I'm going to start by creating a very simple joint, and then we're going to modify it later to animate it. So J for join. So I'm going to join, as before, I'm going to join this corner here to this corner here. Now you can see it's looking a little bit funny at the moment, but don't worry. And we'll go OK. So you can see everything's moved into that place there. Before we modify the joint, we want to work out how far the sliding tray can actually slide. So we can use the inspect tool just to measure. So I just want to go from that corner of the box there down to this corner here, and you can see that that's 90 millimeters. So that gives us some information that's relevant. Now to modify an existing joint, we can just select it. Now if you can't see that there, it might mean that joints is actually suppressed. So we can just select it, right click, edit the joint. So the first thing we want to do is we want to set up the motion. So The way we set it up the first time, it's a rigid joint, but we can actually select this and you can see these different kinds of joints that you can have. So we're going to have a slider joint because we want to slide a component along a single axis. So we'll select that and you can see it's animating already. But it's going in the wrong way because it's defaulting to the Z axis. So we can just go through and just check to make sure what axis do we want. It looks like the X axis. Okay, so we've now got that. Now in terms of motion limits, well, that's our start point. So we'll have our minimum set to 0. But our maximum, we've already found that out. We'll set it to 90. And you can see that it's showing us where it's going to stop, which is exactly in the right spot. So now we can go OK. So theoretically, we should be able to slide this. But we've got a problem. And what the problem is that nothing is grounded. So basically, because there is a joint relationship with the box, everything moves. So all we've got to do, and this is a pretty standard thing, if we select the box assembly, right click on it, we'll ground the box assembly. Now we did move some things a little bit there, so we might as well just go, in this case, we'll go revert position. So we've gone exactly back to where we were. Now if I just click away, now if I select any part of the tray, you can see that it slides up and down exactly in the place where we want it to slide. Now we've got that done, there's just one other modification that we need to make here. So when I attach my lid, I'm not going to hinge it to the box. Basically what I'm going to do is on the underside of my lid, I'm going to create a sleeve, or basically put an extra piece of material that has a thickness, but one that sits inside this space here. But the problem is that obviously it will interfere with the sliding tray, or the sliding tray will interfere with the sleeve. So all I have to do is, again, you can see the joint icon has changed because now it's showing that it's not a rigid mate, but it's actually a sliding joint. So I'm just going to select it as we did before, right click, edit it. And the only other thing I'm going to do now is I'm just going to offset it on the Z axis. So I could do it up here. I could just, do some sort of variation up here. But what I'm going to do is down here, I'm just going to make that -3. And then OK. So you can see now it's set 3 millimeters down from the top. And as before, I can still slide it in that space. Now you may have noticed that the box, although we're nearly complete, we're not quite there yet. You can see that we've got our nice sliding animation here, but the reality is that our sliding tray, there's nothing actually to support it. So in the real world, I just get the students to create a little sleeve that just sits on the inside faces so that the tray actually has something to support it. So we'll create that now. So before we do, we actually we'll start by hiding some things. So we'll open up box assembly, and I just want to hide this side facing me because it just gets in the way. Then we're going to use our inspect tool to measure, and we want to go from this bottom corner here of the sliding tray down to this line here and work out what that is. So we've got 41 millimeters there. So we just need to remember that. Okay, so we'll keep hiding things. So we'll hide our splines and our ends because they'll get in the way. And we might as well hide our tray as well. So we're going to create a new sketch, and it's going to come off this face here. Now what I'll do, just so I can get everything in the right place, I'm actually going to select this box assembly here. So I'm just going to press that particular, have this turned on here. So new sketch. We're going to sketch off this inside face, R for rectangle, and I just need to go from that corner there and across. Now the bottom dimension of 196 millimeters is exactly what we want. It's this other dimension that we need to edit to 41, which is what we had before. Make sure that snaps to 196, and there we go. We can finish the sketch. So now we need to extrude it. And so we'll come out this way. We need to come out 3 millimeters, and we need it to be a new component. And then we go OK. And you can see the component has turned up down here in our box assembly. So we might as well give it a name, and we'll just call it tray support. Now obviously we need another one. Now if you remember right back at the beginning when we first set this up, I started drawing it out using a center point rectangle. And one of the benefits of it is we're going to see that right now because we're going to create a new tray support just by using the mirror function. So we'll go create, mirror, object type is going to be components. We'll select that component, and our mirror plane is going to be our original, one of our 3 original surfaces from our original origin here. So we've got that, and you can see that appears. We'll go OK. And then just to prove that it's worked, if I turn the other side on and orbit around, you can see it's in exactly the right place. Okay, so now we effectively have everything complete for our box. So we'll turn everything on. We'll turn our tray on as well. We'll go back up and just have our overall project selected. But again, we can just now see that our tray is sliding on our little supports there. One final thing before we finish this tutorial is I'm going to show you just how to make the box look a bit more realistic. So what we'll do is I'll select the box assembly and we'll open it up. And we'll just start there. So I'm just going to open that up there, and I'll just select the side facing us just to start off with. Now if I right click on that, you can see a couple of different features here. You can add a physical material to it, and that's quite useful, particularly if you want to do sort of any engineering functions, because not only does it make it look like that material, but also assigns properties to it as well. Now in this case, it's not really necessary, so we can use the appearance function, and you'll see something like this come up over to the side. But what I'm going to do, I'm just going to select as well, just for this one, everything that I'm going to give the same material to. So in this case, it'll just be the sides of the box. And what I'll do here is, I've already opened this up before, but you'll see this menu here, and at the bottom, you'll see wood. So you can just click on that one, open it up, and I'll start off with maybe pine glossy is a good one. So I'll select that, and I can just drag it onto the box, and you can see that appear there. Now you might sort of look at that. There is something about that I don't particularly like, and that's the grain direction, because it's not realistic. In the real world, that's not the way the grain would go. So just to show you what you can do is if you then select it up here, because we've now dragged it onto our model, so it'll appear up here. So if we select that, right click on it, edit it, this will come up. Now the first thing that we can do is we can change the rotation. So we can fix that problem pretty much straight up. So there you go, now we've got the grain going the right way, and you can play around with some of these other features here. But now what's happened is I've got these really big knots in my image, and I'm not a massive fan of that. So I can then go into advanced, and I'll just move this over and widen this out a bit. And you can see, we've got the image that comes in, and there's some other features here as well. But what I'm going to do is on the image, just hiding over here, I'm going to edit the image. And I'm going to play around, and again, these menus don't really open up fully. But if I get in here, I can keep playing around with things. So one of the things that I want to do is, I'll just move that there and that there so we can see what's going on here at the box. I'm going to just play around with this offset a little bit to see if I can get rid of those knots there. So I might offset by 50 millimeters and press enter, see what we get. Well, that already, there we go. We've actually gotten rid of that. The other thing you can do, you can change the sample size so that it becomes a little bit more finely defined if you wish. But I just thought I'd show you that so that you can then play around with it.